All right, oopsies, there we go. Let's share my screen. All right, you guys seeing my slides here? Is that working?
Yep.
Okay, great. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming in. My name is Matt Wallrath. I do serve as the Invasive Species Program Manager for the Upper Sugar River Watershed Association. I'm doing this training about Eddmaps, a little bit about the basics of how we think about invasive species in the state, some species to note, and a live demo for some of the tools that we're talking about at the end. So thanks for coming in. This is sponsored by Dane County Parks and the Lake Monitoring and Protection Network. That's part of the state's program to protect our waterways and to work with watersheds, rivers, lakes to think about these issues on a big scale. So thanks for being part of the solution here. Upper Sugar, as we call it. So like I said, I work for it's Upper Sugar River Watershed Association. It's a very long title. We usually just go by Upper Sugar for the sake of brevity. We have been around for 20 years as a 501c nonprofit, and are happy to be doing a bunch of the core services for the driftless area throughout Wisconsin. So organism trade work, talking to pet shops, doing some control, getting signage out there, and staffing boat landings. So we're just got some job offers out today, which we're excited to talk about for the rest of the season for our hiring and doing this work on the ground. And we like to get in person if we can. So we'll be doing these more in person, hopefully someday, but right now, building our online resources. So when we're talking about invasive species, there is a technical in the statutes definition of it, as you can see here. And the key there is the environmental harm or harm to human health and economic harm. So these things can be both sides. They can cause us money, they can cause sickness, they can be poisonous, they can just be a nuisance and harm our native environment as well, and the aesthetics and the natural heritage of the state. So there is a rule that it comes down to all this stuff. NR40, which talks about viable organisms. And for this training, we're going to talk about Wisconsin and Wisconsin's rules. They change from state to state and country to country, but we have our rule here that helps us guide our work as biologists to focus on different types of species that are dangerous, and then also say, well, yeah, maybe you don't like dandelions, but they're not on the list, and here's why. We got a famous one here we talk about a bit more, which is the wild parsnip. It looks like a carrot, but it will give you these really nasty burns if you have it out there on your skin for too long. It's got photodermatitis. We'll get off that slide so we can get back to the peaceful books. But so great reason why you wouldn't want to have wild parsnip in your rights of way or in your backyard, because the sap can actually hurt you. So how do we define what is and what is not invasive species? It takes partially the work of John Curtis, and he had a survey of what was around at the time of the settlement by the European settlers of Wisconsin. So that list of things before here is considered native. And then we also do have expert biologists at the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, lots of partnerships that decide what is coming in that's actually a threat and what can be taken off or changed on the list. We do have the most common things are restricted with that orange R on there. And these are things that we don't really want to move around. We don't want to sell them. We're never going to eradicate them in the state. They're always going to be part of the fabric. It's not feasible to go back to pre-settlement times and that set of plants and animals. It's just not going to happen. So these are quite common, and we'll go through kind of some of them in a second. But you can think of garlic mustard and buckthorn and Eurasian water milfoil are all things that are very common but bad. And as I go to this next one, the prohibited species are the ones, if you notice, possess is the key. You cannot possess these species on your property, or it's legal to move them around, or even actually own them. It's legal to move around with the restricted ones as well. So these ones are high focus, and we can do controlled efforts to detect them and make sure they don't spread around to the best of our ability. And that's how the state uses that species list from NR40 to say, well, we'll spend money in this, we'll spend energy and staff time here. These ones, maybe not so much, that'll be regulated. And if it's not on the list, we can keep an eye on it, but we're not as concerned about reporting it to the state and to the feds. Either way, Eddmaps is a cool way to talk about all kinds of stuff, but it is focused on invasive species. There's other things like iNaturalist and iSeek that you can do for all the various species of plants and animals. But what we're trying to do right now is talk about this prevention and this early detection as a way to get that monitoring done that could really save a huge amount of time just by cleaning your tools and by knowing what's on the landscape and nipping things in the bud, as it were. You can go a long way. So a classic example of our restricted species would be garlic mustard. You'll see out starting actually right now, there's little green feet that I'm seeing, these little small, where if you can see where I'm putting with these things are starting to emerge from the ground. So restricted, very, very common. Maybe not one that you are so concerned about putting into Eddmaps, but could be a good tool for volunteer projects. Other really common species are the buckthorns. You can see the kind of occurrence map here. I got some pictures of these glossy trees with these little bumps on them. So, you know, if ID is a whole other thing, I'm just going to blast through a few of the most common invaders and kind of how they make a difference. So also lots of honeysuckle out there on the landscape. These very showy bushes with these kind of pretty flowers, ornamental, that we want to be taking care of to the best of our ability and, you know, reporting. But again, this is restricted, so we're not quite as concerned about that as we would with a prohibited plant. We've got our honeysuckles in different types. I'm going to lay it out there. So it's whenever we're talking about one plant, just because you kind of recognize the signs, you might need to dig a bit more to make sure there aren't native lookalikes or things that you're going to be detecting and saying, oh, I think this is this thing, but it's actually something else. And there are tools in Eddmaps that I'll show you for both the online and the mobile version that serve as a pocket guide, which can be a handy thing for volunteers to have when they're out in the field and want to look at different characteristics. Another one to keep an eye open for, this is kind of my easy to find and also important to find list of species, is this Japanese hops. And that is part of the hops family, and they're quite, in fact, where some of our, to the north of the state, they're prohibited. To our part, and where I work is restricted. And they are quite prickly and nasty. So I want to report those when you see them. Porcelain berries also on the rise. Now, so this is prohibited. So if we see these, you want to get this into the system and pass along to the state so we can do control work before it gets out of hand. And a little bit of how you can tell porcelain berry apart from wild grape here. It's got this different pith color, and the tendrils are different. So if you want to look at this later on, know that it's out there, and that's what we want to say. Getting to our aquatic stuff, very commonly we see Eurasian water milfoil. So it has this distinctive large number of pairs, 12 to 21 pairs of leaflets, and that's as you count one side of the plant, and they have certain distinct colors. We do have a native version, but this one's quite aggressive and has a bunch of interesting abilities that allow it to spread through our waters. So we want to clean our boats off as much as we can every time we go out and not spread this around. Same is true of our curly leaf pondweed, which is the lasagna noodle of the aquatic world here. It's got this kind of wrinkly, spiky look to it, and again, restricted but quite common in the state. And we want to make sure we're not spreading that in our boats and on our boots. Now we're getting to the prohibited category, and these are things we definitely want to report when we see them. And the New Zealand mud snail, they're incredibly small. That's the millimeter marking on the bottom left-hand corner. You can see them around a dime. So if you do think you have these things, that's definitely, you want to report that right away to your local resource, which could be myself or the DNR Invasives page too. And just a reminder quickly that you want to get rid of your felt-soled boots if you're out doing this kind of mapping stuff, because they do spread a lot of our most dangerous invasive species, which is to say like New Zealand mud snail and rock snot and things we just don't want to move around. So always a partial plug in these trainings to make sure to clean your boots. So, you know, rinse stuff down, get it all away at the site as much as you can before you move on. And if you want to have a boot brush station or something around, that's always a good thing to have too. So if you see one of these, go ahead and use it in your outdoor adventures. So when we talked about the various best management practices as well, if that NR40 would like you to do, that's the law. We do have this new trifold that I'm in the process of distributing out. So if you want to get this, this goes great with an Eddmaps training for a municipality, so they can have a little better sense of both what they're looking at and how to control it, and if to mow it, if not to mow it, and even some chemical recommendations from the UW Cal's Runs Lab. So get in touch with me if you want a copy of this, or like 50 copies of it. Dane County helped us produce this. So, and we're rolling this out and with more trainings on this kind of mapping tool. I'm not going to belabor too much of the particular parts of this, except that know your roads, know your species to the best of your ability. It's kind of step one in order to successfully identify and report, is just kind of getting familiar with what's around you and doing the best you can to keep learning and know the lookalikes, like I said earlier. So I'm going to blast through these really quickly. That's our wild parsnip. That distinctive shape down there on the bottom, when you might want to report. And there are some lookalikes to that before you go ahead. Now, the nice thing about Eddmaps is that it is verified by, in our region, Ann Pierce, who is a great botanist, and can ask questions if she sees things that she might say, well, is that really yellow parsnip, or is it in fact golden Alexander? And one that I'm really concerned about too now is this poison hemlock that's popping up. A great reason to put this thing into a mapping system, because you'd like to know how it's spreading, and also, you know, stay away from it and be really controlled. The teasels are also coming up on the sides of the roads right now, pretty common. That spiky head, interesting flower, not restricted plant. And purple loosestrife is something that we fight in the state quite often as well. It has this nice purple stalk to it. It's opposite, meaning the leaves come out right on the sides, and mowing it doesn't really work all that well, but if you can keep on knocking it down, it will eventually. But we do have a state-approved biocontrol program that we get to raise beetles on, so it doesn't clog up our big old wetland complexes by becoming this big shrub system. So something to report out there. Finally, my personal nemesis these days is the knotweeds complex, which is these very tall plants that look kind of like bamboo. They're hollow, and they kind of fade between spade-shaped to heart-shaped leaves, depending upon how they are a hybrid of each other. But a great one to report, because as eventually it's very destructive to wetland areas, to infrastructure as well, and dams that can go in the side of your house. So you definitely want to report this, and if it's on your land, take care of it as soon as you can, if at all possible, before these kind of beautiful flowery stalks become this massive infestation. I've seen it take over entire islands. So I do check reports of this and have used Eddmaps as a tool to talk about these things, and then get a report with a solid link to a manager that can do something about it, and have had some successful control that way. It's all over the state, and we're teasing this apart a bit with genetics this coming year. But just a reminder, if you see this stuff and you know it, do not move it around. It will get inside all of your fill and do all this sort of nasty spreading by a root clump that's just the size of, you know, it's the Tootsie Roll pretty much. Like a big Tootsie Roll can make a whole new population, like a 1 inch long segment. So nasty stuff. Oh, and then phragmites, of course, another wetland invader, and something that spreads. It is confusing because we do have a native version of it that is it's kind of hard to tell apart. So you might want to dig in a bit and make sure you take some samples of this one if you see it before you end up out there spraying it around. Just a reminder, clean your gear. So hopefully that maybe some of those rang a bell with you out there in video land, and that's why you want to care about this. If not, it's a great way to look at digging into different resources and what to share. You can learn more about why this is important, and you can always get in touch with me or the DNR for further training on these issues. But let's get into Eddmaps here. So we've got it is an acronym, and which of course means it's great for us nonprofit and state workers. It is the Early Detection and Distribution Mapping System, and you do have to create an account so that you can have long-term record keeping, which I think is a great aspect of it. Those records will be live and linked to you as a reporter, and so especially if you're a known botanist in the area or you work for an institution, if you can actually see who reported the stand and perhaps contact them personally, and it helps make the decision making for the verifiers easier. If they know, if they say, oh, it's Matt and he's looking at garlic mustard, there's a good chance that I know what I'm talking about. So it's nice to kind of have that professional accountability as you make your records. So and I'll go through we'll get on a live screen here in a minute, but I want to show you the basic process here as you are using this tool. So you would go into report sightings, and you can see you're going to pick from a drop down the particular plant or animal that you're looking at, and you're going to fill out this form. It has the date, as you can see, the area. It has a bit about the habitat, coverage if you get into that, and overall abundance, as well as how you saw it. So you can see I've checked mature and in flower. This is a prohibited plant that I killed with Dane County. We'll be remonitoring this season. It's a rapid spreader in riparian areas, and so they wanted to. It's mandated for control. So we got some money to do that. That's what pestilence board is. If you've never heard of it, also called butterfly dock. What's cool is that they have this live mapping tool. So this is from the PC version. So in the PC version, you're going to have this ability to make a polygon, which I'll show you live. And then that snaps right in your lat long and your county because it knows where you are. And in this case, you can go ahead and put in more addresses, but it has a particular level of knowledge of what's happening anyways. Now, if you want to make sure you have permission, which I do from this landowner to report this kind of stuff, because on private land, it can be a bit tricky, but you can still, because you can't trespass, but if you can see something from the road, you can still report it. I use it more for public stuff and rights of way, but there are times when I snap pictures of someone's knotweed right across the side of the road. So as we're moving through, what's neat, so I click this and now I have these records, these reports that I can reference back to. So each one of these has an ID that you can use, and there's going to be a solid link that's going to have nested in all of your other data, but it's going to then, once it's verified, it will appear on the Eddmaps map. So now the PC is one thing, but for me, the real utility, because I think most of us probably have one of these in our pockets most of the time, is to do my reporting in the field as long as I have some data. Or in fact, with Eddmaps Pro, you don't have to have data, and you can do your records, make your observations, take pictures, and upload them all at the same time. And it will actually upload when it gets back to Wi-Fi to save your data, unless you are really itching to get that data up. So let's look at, there's two different versions of the Eddmaps protocol, and they are going to be the Eddmaps version. Now this is slightly new. We used to say in the region you wanted to use the Great Lakes Early Detection Network app, which I mentioned because it might ring a bell. It's being phased out. It still works, but they're making a more unified Eddmaps app that's going to serve the entire country as the phones get slicker and as there's more playing together of the databases. They're unifying everything to make it so that it's going to be, you can use one app across the entire country. This is run by something called Bugwood out of University of Georgia. So pretty neat stuff. And it is available for both Apple and Google. And I know people have success with it on both platforms. And also, of course, there's always bugs, and I have got feedback from them when I've reported bugs, so it's nice. So before I actually, I'll kind of prime your interest with this this shot of the phone app, but I'm gonna walk through a bit about how Eddmaps works and some of the tools. I can show it better online, and then I'll kind of play through it as we go through on the phone side of things. So I'm going to stop my. It's always fun balancing. Here we go. End this slideshow and get up to. Let's see here. My other window. There we go. Of course, it always. Let's see. Let's get a refresh on this puppy. Just to confirm, can people still see my screen? Anybody still there?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Thank you so much. You know, it's always, whenever you go live, without a safety net in the world of Zoom. But here we go. So this is our home page, and I should be signed in. There we are. So let's click around this a little bit and just take a look at some of the tools. I don't really spend much time on this homepage, but it does have pretty moving pictures. So report sightings. This is the tool that I was showing you before, and I will make, because I can, a reed canary grass report in my own backyard, or at least across the swamp for me, because I know it's there and we report it. So I'm signed in, which is a process I'll get through in a bit more, making an account for the various applications. But you click plants. You can also just kind of search wherever. I'm going to say plants, click on Wisconsin. And now it kind of filters down a bit, so you're not searching the entire world, because it's a worldwide application. So let's see, common reed they call it, or that'd be frag. Nope. So reed canary grass, right? There we go. All right. So I observed this today. It's true. And I'm not going to worry about that. It is dormant dead. And here's where it gets real fun. So I can just go ahead and hit control and just zoom right in and say, okay, let's see. I am over here. I took a hike this afternoon to Garber Feed Mill, and I observed reed canary grass. Let's see. So right here, check this out. Boom. Now I'm going to draw a polygon and connect these dots. All right. And now if I actually could add more polygons here, but I'm just going to make this as one report. And now that fills in my lat long, it fills in my county. Like I said, that's 1 acre that I selected, and go ahead and say, it's kind of an edge of it's like a riparian area. So let's see if we can find here. A bit of a bog. Yeah, it's a swamp. It's a wet swamp, and the cover was very considerable at some spots, and it is a dense monoculture. Not seeing any damage. All right, so I'm just going to say Garber Feed Mill here. Yeah, there you go. And it is private land with public access. Now, I'm not going to upload any images right now, but I could. And this is a great thing about it. I could take a picture from my computer and sync it right in here and write captions and photo credits. Now, and that does definitely help you to verify things quickly with the staff that's doing this kind of work. But Ann Pierce knows that I am in fact out there doing this kind of stuff. And so I'm going to submit this report. This is live science, folks. And here we are. So we have this record. All right. Now, as you see, it is going to go ahead with this verifier. It will not show up anywhere except your reports list until it is verified by a professional. And if we have pictures and whatnot, it's great to include that too. What does this lead to eventually? What happens when this goes into the database? Same thing. You can do plant by plant. I'm going to look at plants here. We're going to go grasses, and we're going to look at, reed canary grass. So now check this out. Got my reed canary grass zooming in. And I click points. You can, if you put states on, you can kind of set your coarseness depending upon what kind of analysis you want to. So it'll probably light up in every state except for some reason Oklahoma. Oh yeah, but counties you can send. But we're gonna go back to the points so you can actually really just see how cool this app is when you're using it as a data management and communication tool. So scroll down a bit and start zooming in, and these things start popping around. And so these clusters show you data, how many reports there are, and there's a lot up there. They're doing a lot of good Eddmaps stuff. So we're zooming in, we're zooming in. All right, we're in Madison. Let's see what if we got anything up in your neck of the woods here. The Golden Sand. Oh, Stevens Point. Let's see. So here's Wausau. Let's get a little bit closer, and you can get these individual points. So here we are at the beautiful Schmickley Reserve. Click on this puppy, and Ann Pierce reported it herself. Let's go to this record. Might not be a photo in this one because, but there is. So you can see all this information. You can see the polygon there. Yeah, no particular pictures on this one because, again, if you know reed canary grass, it's you've seen one, you've seen them all. But so that is, I said, a solid record. This is going to have a long-term presence that's linked to this page. This is actually, and you can do revisiting as well. So you can also use it as a, you see this on the right. This is a positive thing. You can actually add treated, eradicated, or if you wanted to, you could add negative reports, especially if you're going back and after control work has happened, or you're surprised that there's not. I don't use the negative thing that much, but if you were surprised that you didn't find something, you can also use that. So pretty nice. Again, there's this species information tab, which there's lots of resources, but it's each one of the ones that's in there has a bit of a, and this works across taxa. We have for New Zealand mud snails, we have for fish, we've got diseases, and even for wildlife, though I usually use it for invasive species stuff. Quickly, if this just piques your interest, there are the tools and training. There's a bunch of FAQs over here, so you can go to the training tab, and they have slides that I stole for this presentation and all the different stuff, all the different types, because iPhone, Android, they all work a bit different. So kind of cool stuff there. And then I'm going to get back to, I'm just going to show you this and then get back to the presentation slides. So when you have this dashboard, you can see, your records, and like what you've been reporting out there, and so again, you got this list of stuff, and I saw some bittersweet here. And so again, because I have this permanently here, I can just click on this ID, and here we go. So this is my, this over my territory. I have pictures that I've uploaded, and it has this that polygon where I found it. So just because it'll come up, and I recommend the Pro version. You do have to make an account, and then you will come over to this Pro Tools version, and you'll have to add a county list, and you'll have to upload those. I know it's a little bit clunky, but I wanted to mention it now while I'm on the demo side of things, because if you go to that Pro version, it's pretty neat. So with that being said, I'm going to get back to my presentation here, and oopsies. Get to that same slide. There we go. All right, so we're talking about different versions of the application, why you might want to choose one over the other. There we go. So Eddmaps, with lots of funny capitalization, but the Eddmaps version of this application is the simpler one. It's what you might want to use if you have, you're in a city, you don't want all the fancy functions, and it includes the ID characteristics. So it has like a dictionary in there. It has like the encyclopedia, but it does not include all of the updated distribution maps. So it's not pulling data in necessarily. It's more for reporting out, and it's more simplified. So if that's what people want to do, and they don't really care about ground truthing or some of the more advanced options, then it's a better option. It's just simpler. Eddmaps Pro, however, is able to go offline. So it actually, with that downloading of county regions, you can keep that active in your back pocket and go ahead and get a polygon on there with these kind of maps that it downloads. It takes a bit of a presence. So this is a shot of Eddmaps Pro. So or actually, I think this is the old Glidden map here. So it has the images of the stuff on the left, and then you have the currencies on the right, and you can make reports. Again, this is that where you can find that county list for your Eddmaps Pro stuff to get that set up. It is worth, I think, taking the time, but then a couple extra steps if there's an FAQ to do that. You can go ahead and add. Also, just make sure you upload your data. That's something in the version of my phone you have to hit upload manually. So if you never do that, you just have a big queue of stuff that is not going to be super useful to anybody until it gets uploaded. All right, so quick blast through of some other tools to get you kind of looking for the right stuff at the right time. We've got the this Wisconsin First Detectors Network citizen science tool that can let you know if you want to go out and do this reporting stuff, you want to ask what's happening in the field right now. This is a great way to look at that. It also has fact sheets, and this is something that ties back to the Ren's lab here right in Wisconsin. It's a bunch of stuff to control things that are made for Wisconsin in particular. So you go to that tools tab over there, and then you're going to find this overlay of what's happening with, so for example, if we're looking at, in this example, garlic mustard, and you look over here to, it is currently March, which means it's dormant or bare branches, but sure enough, if it's going to have green vegetation as we move forward, here we go, I'm on the wrong one. Here's the green vegetation coming in, and then flowering. So you can kind of see what type of life stage it's in, so if you can detect it or not in that part of the year. Kind of neat tool. And then it does have the key over here that's kind of, if you look at how the things are shaded in, will tell you more about how easy it is to detect, and those life stages are color coded, as well as kind of habitat form stuff. So there we go. I did my live demo because I thought it was better over in that earlier spot. But so that was the there, and then I'm just gonna say reminder to keep cleaning your gear, get involved. It's a National Invasive Awareness Species Week, I believe is what it is. So if I said that right, so thanks for coming and being part of that event. There are a bunch of statewide programs and national programs for doing this work and keeping your gear clean. So share this out with your teams, and if your coordinators know what's going on, that they want another training. I do this for municipalities fairly often, and I'm seeing more uptake of it in my region with people able to make a link, make a report, and share it with another team or even different municipality. So since it doesn't have any particular state or county affiliation, it makes it a bit easier to use. Those online resources are right here. So if you want to copy the slides or just take a screenshot of that, go ahead. I do want to mention that this is presented on partially behalf of the SISMA that I serve on the council for, so the South Central Invasives Partnership. So just thanks to that group for promoting this video as well, and for running these trainings and Eddmaps use in our region. So proud to be doing that, and also to have other SISMA leaders here on the training with us today. And with that, I would invite questions, and I appreciate having a moment to explain this to you. And I'm going to stop the share, and we can kind of, if you want to turn your cameras on, or we can start having a conversation about this and walking through other tools and other uses. So thank you so much for your attendance, and I will be here for until at least 7 if we have other questions to ask.
Hey, Matt.
Yes, sir.
So when you do this